Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Grow the Earth. I'm Tommy, and as always, we're back out here in the garden. And today, I'm going to address something called succession planting. The purpose of succession planting is to stagger harvest on either a vegetable that is a very, very vigorous producer or vegetables with very short harvest times. And an example of something with a short harvest time would be a radish. From plant to harvest, they're only like 30 to 45 days. And once you pull those vegetables up, they're done because you're actually eating the root. Carrots would be another example of this. Now, an example of our vigorous producers would be something like what's here behind me, which are green beans. Now, these plants were planted at the beginning of March, and they have been very vigorous producers, but with most vigorous producers, they have a very limited time that they put out fruit like that. And now these plants are starting to wind down. So, in succession planting, because we don't want a whole bed of green beans and just to be overloaded with the green beans for 3 months, we plant some, we let them start producing, then we'll plant more. And just like now, these are starting to wind down, so what we're going to do is in this bed here, we're going to plant more, and what that will allow us to do is extend our harvest. Because as these wind down, these will be growing and coming in to where they'll start producing, and then we'll be able to tear these plants out after they're about done. While these plants are growing and producing well, then we can replant others again in the other part that is taken up by these green beans that are here now. So it's a very efficient way to get more harvest out of a limited space, and also to be able to make sure that you're not overloaded with produce, and that way you're not you're not through harvesting green beans 3 months after you've planted them. You know, now we can continue to harvest along with the ones that we're going to be planting in a day or two. Now, this also applies to things like tomatoes. If you follow my other video, which is where I talk about tomato planting and how we do certain tomatoes, and I'll put a link to that video right here, just like with the determinate variety tomatoes. They're going to grow to a certain size, they're going to put on a lot of fruit, and pretty much most of that fruit, or almost all of that fruit, is going to come ripe at one time. So what that does is that gives us a very large harvest of tomatoes at one time. So you don't want to have 10 to 12 of those tomato plants because they're all going to come fruiting at one time. So with something like that, we can do the same thing of succession planting. We can come through and plant a few, and then like 2 or 3 weeks later we can plant more, and 2 or 3 weeks later we can plant more. And that way, as those plants come viable and as those plants start putting fruit that is able to be picked, you're not going to have them all ready at one time. You're going to be able to pick and then pick and then pick and then pick, and that way you extend your harvest season. And this is even true for things in your fall season like a cabbage. Cabbage is going to grow one head, and it is going to be harvested all at one time. And if you plant a dozen heads of cabbage, unless you've got a lot of friends who like cabbage, you know, a cabbage does store for quite a while, but they're not going to store long enough for you to eat 10 heads of cabbage. So what you do is you stagger plant those to where you'll have some that come ready, you know, in a certain week. And that way, the 1 or 2 that you planted in that 1 week, You'll harvest those and you'll have time to take care of those and do something with them. And then a couple weeks later, the other ones will be ready, and so forth. And that way, too, as you harvest those heads, if you want to, if you have enough time left, you can replant those ones that you're pulling up and get another harvest, and you can kind of bunny hop your whole bed, and that way you don't have 10 or 12 heads of cabbage at one time, but you're also going to be able to harvest 10 or 12 heads of cabbage. But they're just going to come ready in a wider space of time. Now, unfortunately, with things like okra, that's just one thing you just kind of have to deal with, because they're going to be very vigorous producers no matter what, and they produce vigorously for a long time. And as you can see, these plants were planted at the end of March, early May, and they're already huge, and there's fruit all over them. And we pull at least a pound of okra off of these plants in one day, almost every day. And it is a blessing, of course, because the Lord has seen it well to provide for us this way, but it also means that we get to bless others with that blessing, because just like today, we gave away to 4 or 5 of our neighbors, a good pound of okra apiece, some of our cucumbers, some of our tomatoes, and things like that, because it's just producing so well. We don't have the space nor the need for all of this food, but we would rather bless somebody else with our blessing than to hoard it up and be selfish with it. When we planted this garden, me and the wife prayed and we asked God if we did the work of building this garden and we did the planting, that He would put His hands to it and make it grow and be productive. And as you can see, He's held up His end of the bargain. Well, our end was that we would eat and take what we needed to feed our family, but that we would not sell, but we would share the rest with others to pass His blessing on. And I believe that we've held up our end of the bargain too, and God continues to bless our garden and continues to make it fruitful beyond our needs every time. Yes, we do have some problems with things. Yes, we do have times that a certain fruit or a certain vegetable doesn't do as well as we would like it to, but that's all part of God's plan too. He gives us what He needs and what we need, and He doesn't give us what we don't need. There are certain times that our cucumbers won't do so well, but He'll bless us with peppers beyond compare, or okra, or right now with our melons, we've got melons that are just all over the place on our trellises, and we don't normally get a lot of melons, but we're getting a lot of melons this year. So He's blessing us in that way. We've gotten more tomatoes than we've ever seen out of this garden. We have given so many tomatoes away that we have to ask to make sure that they need them before we try and give them to them, because they're just like, okay, we've got enough. We've even gone so far as to take some of those things to blessing boxes around our town, around our city, to give to people that we don't even know, because I would rather give all of this production away than to watch it rot in my refrigerator. Whenever you pray to God and you make a covenant with Him, you can be sure He's going to hold up His end of the deal if you hold up your end of the deal. And as you can see, I believe that it's pretty self-evident that we've held up our end of the deal and God is blessing us for it. So, guys, I pray that this video finds you well. If you've watched this far, I ask you to like and subscribe. Come back to watch my videos. Look back in my library of videos that I have and see if there's maybe something there that you're looking for that might help you. I'm not a vlogger. I'm pretty much more of just straight information, and I try and make a library to where if you're looking for something, you're dealing with a specific issue, then you can look back through my videos and find it. I don't do clickbait titles. I don't do outlandish anything. I'm strictly trying to help others to grow their garden better, and I'm trying to make sure that this information gets out there to as many people as it can, to help as many people as it can. Because I truly believe that the man who knows how to grow his garden is going to be a lot better off in the next few years than someone who doesn't. It's simply going to come down to, I think, the haves and the have-nots. And the haves are going to be the ones who can get back to growing the earth and making their own food, instead of relying on a grocery store and relying on, big trucks to bring in your food and everything else. Homegrown is where it's going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. I can almost guarantee it. So guys, as always, I ask you to pray over your garden, pray over your family, and have a great day.